Thank you. Thank you, Shelley, and good morning, everyone. It's my first time to be at an ITE annual meeting, which is probably shameful given that I've been in this industry so long. I'm more of an ITS America guy, you know, and automotive conferences and that kind of thing. So I'm really, really pleased to be here. It is my job to tell you a little bit about what's happening in the automated driving field, and I think I can do that. My passion in this industry is to take this industry forward, to overcome barriers, make the most of the opportunities, and create the right connections among the players. It's what a lot of you do as well in your world. And my perspective in this talk comes from a deep involvement with the automotive industry and with the government players around the world who are pursuing the many forms of vehicle automation. There are a lot of forms, and I really can't give it justice here, but I'll give you a few tidbits. I think my main message is the wave is upon us. Automation is not a future thing anymore. It is a now thing, which is really quite amazing. We've heard about it our entire lives. I mean, think about it. When was the first time this idea entered your head of a car that can drive itself? You know, maybe it was just a couple of years ago when Google got in the news, or maybe when you were a kid. Think about that. And is it just a new wave of hype? Or is it real this time? And if it's real, what's the best way to ride the energy for you in your world? So I'll conclude with some thoughts about that. But first, a real quick look at the history. You know, the question has to be, we've been doing this since 1939. Why all the false starts? What happened? What was the deal? Decades we've been looking at this. For those of you who don't know, GM sort of introduced the idea at the 1939 World's Fair, something called Futurama. In the 50s, this was the image of automation. Your car drives itself, so of course the seats all turn towards the center and you play dominoes with your kids. That's the first thing I would think of. So there you go. Where did it go from there? Well, as Shelley mentioned, there was this thing called the Automated Highway System Program in the 90s. So how many of you were aware of that at the time? You heard a lot of hype. It's really interesting. You know, there's an article in the major media about once a week now about automation, and some of them get into the history, and almost none of them mention the Automated Highway System Program by Federal Highways. And I take partial responsibility for this, but we just didn't document it well. And you can't find it on the web very easily. You end up, if you find it, it's UC Berkeley's site, and it gets called the PATH program, and good for them. But it's a lesson learned. The federal government did not document their activities in this area too well. You know, that's just a matter of media attention. It was an interesting program. It was a big deal, a lot of hype. Demo 97 happened. That was mandated by Congress. It was Congress's idea, by the way. They told us to do it in Ice-T, kind of a visionary thing. It was a swords to plowshares time. And by the time we did the demo, they were saying, "Why are you doing this?" Well, you know, it was your idea. But it was a bit before its time, I would say. You know, processing power then wasn't what it is now, cost issues, and the role of the infrastructure was sort of up in the air. We were pursuing processes and approaches that needed infrastructure support, but also approaches that did not need infrastructure support. However, that became an issue. So that was a big deal in the 90s. Well, what happened after that? A lot more. We saw the first major carrying of people, hundreds of thousands of people, with this IMTS system developed by Toyota to serve the World's Fair in Nagoya, Japan. Fully automated, completely automated, connectivity as well as sensing. There was research in truck platooning. You get a lot of fuel economy benefits that way. And then DARPA came along. I think we've all heard about the DARPA Grand Challenges for unmanned vehicles. This was the desert version. And then came the Urban Challenge, which was much closer to the transportation we deal with. This was the winner, the Carnegie Mellon vehicle, which drove all by itself and was the fastest, and GM was their backer. And then, of course, we know that Google really sort of blew this thing open by telling the world, oh, yeah, we've been testing on California roads for several 100,000 miles, and now we're going to let everybody know. And that was an interesting situation because the media and the public could have reacted with outrage to that, but they didn't. They were fascinated. It was, by and large, very, very positive. It really served to test the waters for the automotive industry. That served to open things up. So that's where the action was really happening. In spite of everything I've just told you, the action that applies now was happening in the auto industry, in the labs, that was not in the news at all. And what that has resulted in is what we call driver assistance systems, active safety systems. These have matured. We're talking crash warning, crash prevention systems on regular cars today, 360-degree monitoring, warning, even assistance systems, meaning they'll hit the brakes for you or maybe nudge the steering. It's quite amazing. What am I talking about? A wide variety. Most of the crashes we are aware of have a countermeasure in electronics based on cameras, radars, lasers on the vehicle, sensing that environment, processing that, and giving you, the driver, information or intervening if you're not responding. Now, they're on the market, but how well are they selling? You know, is it really happening out there? Well, we've reached an inflection point. In the last decade, they were introduced on the luxury vehicles. That's the way that typically works. But now, suppliers are selling millions of units per year, per supplier. These active safety systems are offered on dozens of car models. I'm just wondering, anyone here have something like this on their car? Okay, 15 or 20 hands. It's coming. It's getting there. And a very interesting data point. Volvo Cars just announced in the last month that they sold their 1 millionth car with automated braking, automatic braking. It intervenes if the crash is near certain, and it'll slow you down. So what does it mean to the regular person? Folks like me who might want to buy a $30,000 car, mid-range car. The Ford Focus is a great example. All of these systems are available on the Ford Focus at the $30,000 level. The car costs $20,000, but you add the technology package and up it goes. But this is amazing. Forward collision mitigation. It'll hit the brakes for you, as I was saying. Blind spot, traffic sign recognition, lane keeping aids. The traffic sign recognition issue is interesting because that's actually only available in Europe because the traffic signs are more consistent for the sensors, and they haven't brought them here yet because there's some lack of consistency, according to the auto guys. So that's something to talk about. So this is all to set the stage for automated driving. And again, that question, is it real? Before I go there, I'll just mention this little yellow box in the bottom. If you want to know more about this active safety world, there's a 1-hour television documentary that you can download and watch streaming from the web. It's called The Thinking Car at snagfilms.com. I had a little bit to do with that, so I wanted to make sure you knew about it. But I think it really provides some good background. So is automation real? This is the foundation we've got. We're not starting from scratch. We're not installing the first radars and cameras on cars. That has matured. The costs have come down immensely. So, what does it all mean? We are seeing this year the first introduction of automated capability on the retail market. It's on the Mercedes S-Class, maybe not what everybody here is going to buy. It's on the BMW 5 Series. It's on the BMW i3, which is that vehicle you see there, their new electric line. It's called Traffic Jam Assist. The idea being you're on the freeway, you're in the traffic jam. It's a fairly simple situation technologically, and the vehicle will take over driving 100%. Steering, brakes, throttle. That's it. It's launching this year. From 1939 to 2013, this is a turning point after 70 or so years. And others will follow quickly. And there's also experimentation and prototyping for what's called Highway Pilot, which is full speed, regular speeds. Mercedes, GM, and BMW are very active. I rode in the BMW prototype last year. Superb. It does its own lane changes. It's just like a human driving. The pacing role here, the pacing factor is the role of the driver. And very briefly, I'll get into that. This is for your reference later, a few videos you can look at on YouTube to understand this a little bit more. But the timing, we're looking at right now, this combined lateral and longitudinal control, slow speeds initially moving to highway speeds, and the driver early on needs to be prepared to take over at any moment. That means the driver's a monitor and has to step in when needed. And there are a host of human factors issues there that I will not get into, but it's a challenging area. And it's being worked. So maybe by the end of the decade, we're talking a situation where driving at highway speeds, you don't have to monitor it all the time, and you have a little bit of lead time, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, the car tells you to get involved again. And then if you add a few more years, we'll get to the place where the driver does not need to take over driving at all. Now, this is highway driving. The things are going to start at the highway level because that's the more structured environment. What about the streets? What about the world you folks live in? Street driving is another story altogether, right? Very complex, a lot of unpredictability. It's very, very challenging. However, there are things going on there. It's more at the prototype stage. Here's another YouTube you can look at some point. So we're looking at maybe 2030. It gets to where it's hard to predict at that point. You know, that last 0.0001% of situations has to be dealt with, and it's tough to get that worked out. It could come much sooner in protected environments. When Google says something within 5 years, I can imagine them having some sort of protected environment where they might be operating. And again, I don't have time, but there are implications for transit here and implications for parking. So I have a video, just to give you a feel for this, of the University of Braunschweig in Braunschweig, Germany, has developed what's called the Stadtpilot, and it drives in the urban setting. And this is about a minute or so of a car. A car driving in the urban setting. There's the spinning coffee can up top, which is the Google approach as well to get all that sensor data. It's a typical city arterial, so you've got traffic lights, left turns, all the basic things. I believe it's reading the traffic lights through wireless communications. The auto industry is very close to being able to just use a camera to understand the traffic light situation. And so when an automated vehicle is working, it's a pretty boring video, right? This is the deal. That's how it's supposed to be. So that gives you a feeling for it. I think it's starting again. So what happens, though, and again, I don't have time to go into this, what happens, though, if it all goes wrong? You know, pictures are never completely rosy. There's always some other side to it. What are the challenges? Liability is a challenge. I think it's going to be worked out because the market pull is so strong. Automated braking was seen as impossible in the mid-'90s, and it came to market because the market pull was strong. And it was seen as impossible because of liability. Test and evaluation is a challenge. Regulation is an issue. NHTSA has gotten involved in this. You know, the states are looking at this as well. Privacy gets brought up a lot. Connectivity, you know, is there a dependency on connectivity? I would say privacy is not an issue. It's no different from what we're dealing with now with smartphones. Some would disagree with me. And connectivity is not an issue in the sense that these automated systems do not depend on connectivity to come to market. They'll make use of that data coming wirelessly when it shows up, but they don't depend on it. So simply put, the challenges are there. The right players are working together. So let me speak and conclude with this. You know, what are the opportunities at the street level, at the city level? We're looking at things such as improved traffic flow, certainly fewer crashes. That simplifies everyone's life when you're managing roads. Better coordination at intersections, simply because vehicles will clear better. And as I said, this evolution in transit and parking. A couple of specifics. The quicker clearance at intersections, vehicles will, you know, smartly and efficiently move out from when a green signal shows up. There's the idea of speed harmonization, which Federal Highways is investigating now for highway systems, but it's connectivity-based flow. The idea of very fine-grade speed advisories per lane in very small segments of the road to help clear and smooth traffic. Broadcast by a smart TMC or City Traffic Management Center. This could be applied to arterials. And really, the last thing I want to leave you with is the idea of uploading. Upload your data, your dynamic data, things that change on the order of seconds or minutes that a sensor on a car can't necessarily see, such as traffic signals, such as work zones, especially complicated work zones, even emergency vehicles. The car industry is hungry for data on traffic signals, state, and timing to be on the web so they can download it and bring it into their cars and provide more efficient operation for their customers. They're hungry for that. So that's my main message to you. Your data, uploaded to the cloud, enhances intelligent vehicle systems, which enhances the overall operation of the roadway system. And that's it. Thank you.